Well, I come to you for the secrets of how to do this stuff, how to transform your body, because this past year, 2023, has been the year of weight loss drugs. Yep. Ozempic, Wegovy, we've talked about this some on the show. People are looking for a scientific solution to a problem that now seems to be understood more scientifically. But the offensive linemen of the NFL who show up as part of this reinvented tribe of retired fat guys who are no longer that big. Why? What is the through line here? Why can you people do this so effectively?
I always thought of it as a hammer and a chisel, meaning you do a little bit of work every day over time and you can make something great. And what that requires is discipline and comfort with monotony. It's all of the things that make you an offensive lineman that are inherent to the psyche of the position. Is, again, you go backwards and you do the most unnatural skill set in the sport and try and block the best athletes on the planet. And so to do that, you rep the same things over and over again every day. And none of them are fun. None of them are cute. It's not like the stuff that you see DBs and wide receivers putting on Instagram in the offseason. There's no O-line version of that that sells. There's just the work. There's just quite literally putting your hand in the dirt. And this is what Joe Thomas had to say about that.
Typically, linemen, you see a lot of those guys, they go one way or the other, right? If they're huge guys and they had to lose weight to play on the offensive line, which does happen, like they kind of migrate that way, right? Because that's just their genetics, right? But a lot of guys, they end up losing a lot of weight. You mentioned Russell Okung, myself. Nick Hardwick is another guy that I think about. Alan Faneca ran marathons when he retired. But that's because offensive linemen are used to being in the weight room. We're used to watching what we eat, paying attention to the food we're eating, whether it be guys like me who are trying to gain that weight. So understanding how that food handled in your body, how your body treated the signals, the medicine that you were giving it. We love to work out. Like that was like the brotherhood that we formed in the weight room. And so it was easy for us to transition. Maybe it was different workouts than when you were playing, but still it was part of your routine. It was part of something that you love to do. Whereas I never met a skill guy that liked to be in the weight room. I never met a DB that you didn't have to chase his ass in the locker room to get in there and to work out, because those guys hated it. And they never watched what they eat because it didn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. These guys are running 7 to 9 miles of sprints every day in practice. That's outrageous. Like, no wonder they have torn hamstrings all the time.
This part of the mentality, the idea that if you understand the offensive lineman as somebody who made himself into this, who had to be disciplined in his eating, in his diet, in his scheduling, in the construction and renovation of his body. You're saying that you called upon, that offensive linemen in retirement call upon the same wiring that they had sort of honed and perfected as a player to now do the exact opposite in terms of summoning the discipline.
100%. It's the same level of discipline and really a lot of the same tools that you understand about diet and the way that your body responds to things. That was one of the fascinating parts of talking to Nick Hardwick.
Okay, so you should know that Nick Hardwick is a legendary figure in this world. He played 11 years at center with the San Diego Chargers. He was a Pro Bowler in 2006. He was playing at around 300 pounds, listed at 305, I believe, thereabouts. And then he retired in 2014. And pretty promptly, he lost 85 pounds in 4 months. It was something he was so good at, the losing of all of this weight, that Nick Hardwick then decided to devote his entire life to it.
He's become someone who trains others, who helps them lose weight.
I tell all of my clients when they're getting in, I said, weight loss is a math equation with a lifestyle problem. So it's our job to figure out what we can do with our lifestyle and what you're willing and able to do to fit that into the math equation, because we have to make the numbers work out.
When I started losing weight, I ate at the same times of day. Like your body, it was eat every 2.5 hours. You eat when the clock says, not when you're hungry, not when anything else matters like that. You've got a certain breakdown of things that you want on your plate nutritionally. But for me, it was, all right, the number when I was training to get ready for my pro day was 5,500 to 6,000 calories a day. And so now I just took that number and I cut it in half. And it's comfortable at first because you are eating until you feel sick more often than not when that's the case. And so now on the other side, it's taking that same process and the level at which you're working out. You're still used to being in the weight room, throwing around weight. You're used to doing the things that, again, the vast majority of the population has never been asked to do physically, to push themselves that hard for that long. So all these guys that are wired like that just take that system that's already built into them, and then they take it and just assign different number values to it.
Yeah, I am laughing at how little we appreciate the amount of weight room time that you guys put in, while also being like, the pudgy joke of like, oh, you're a human wall, you're a girthy pawn.
Yeah, and that's why videos like what you saw there with Joe Thomas, or seeing Nick Hardwick now, who's another guy, like an offensive lineman that walks around with abs, that's what's underneath so many of these guys. Like, you don't get to the point where you're squatting like some of these guys, 500 and 600 pounds and benching 400 to 500 pounds. You've got a ton of muscle under there. You just need a little bit of cushion on top to be able to go out there and take the pounding and do that over time. And when you chip that away, I always said cutting open an offensive lineman, like if you were to cut the yoke up here on the shoulders, to me, it's the part that former athletes retain.
Y-O-K-E in this case.
Yes, the Y-O-K-E there, not the Y-O-L-K that you were eating a lot of during that time that leads to the, I won't spell out cholesterol problems right now, but
yeah,
you get
the
where I'm
brimstone.
going.
Yeah.
Yes, the brimstone in there. But yeah, if you cut into a yoke, seeing an offensive lineman, it's like the rings in a tree. You can see the years where they put on the most weight and kind of go back and diagram their entire existence.
When you talk to Nick Hardwick, who is now a guru of sorts, he seems to specialize, right, in training O-linemen to lose weight as a specialty.
Well, he specializes in training people to lose weight the same way an O-lineman does, those same principles that we talk about. So he tried to transcribe all that stuff to help people who never got to live what he did, who never had the resources that he did, for how they can still replicate that process in their life. But it's also, the identity shift that comes with that too.
Going from football player to civilian and trying to find my purpose, trying to find a new identity, trying to find what's going to get me out of bed in the morning and just stoke my fire like football did. To be honest, I think that identity piece is what most football players struggle with when they get out. It's finding who they are.
What was that like for Nick?
It was a really emotional process for Nick, and he was really candid when we talked to him. One, about his shift back to being a much smaller body, which is part of it, but it's also kind of a proxy for you're saying goodbye to this old version of yourself. And for so many guys, and for Nick in particular, it was the classic case of how an athlete grapples with losing the part of them that's defined their life for so long. And Nick was very candid about the dark places that took him to when we talked to him.
What I realized 2 months into my retirement was I was miserable. And I actually told my wife, I said, I came inside crying. It was a Saturday morning. And I said, baby, I don't know what's going on with me. And I'm going to give you all of our money except $1 million, and I'm going to go to Nicaragua. And I had no idea what I was saying at the time. And I don't know why I chose Nicaragua. I'd never been to Nicaragua. But essentially, it was my way of saying, I'm going to leave you with everything, and then I'm going to go to Nicaragua and kill myself. I had everything in my life straight, right? I had made a ton of money. I had saved all of my money. I had 2 beautiful boys that were 3 and 1. I had a wife who cared for me regardless of what sport I played. I had a career going. I had everything you could ever want. And here I am saying I'm going to kill myself, right? So what I realized after years, it was that I was heartbroken. I had never been heartbroken before. I had never had my heart ripped out of my chest and just put on the curb and stomped. And that's what that feeling was, that I had lost my teammates. I wasn't really allowed to hang out with my best friends all day, every day anymore. I lost my purpose in the community, my identity. I lost all those things. So I realized that identity is just such a massive component to physical health. It's a massive component to mental health. And I don't really know if you can separate those two the way that people like to separate them. I think they go hand in hand.
I had never heard Nick talk in so stark terms like that about his own search for identity.
Yeah.
How did he go about trying to find it?
The things that he missed that you heard him talk about there was he had a community of people that needed him and that he needed, right? You rely on each other for everything. The level of trust that you've got with your teammates is really hard to replicate elsewhere. And he had a goal, he had a purpose, and he talked about that a lot every day. And what we realized with now the community that he's built is that he's found a lot of those same things in this next version of himself, because he's created this community of people that he's got a purpose to them. They need him and he needs them to help in the weight loss journey for these people who are trying to transform themselves. He's built a community out of people who are trying to change their bodies for the better, with that purpose of living healthy lives now, of being the best version of themselves, of what it allows them in terms of being the best, spouse or partner or whatever they're trying to do outside of that. And we realize that it's a lot of the same core things in there. A community of people trying to change themselves for a select purpose that they can all help each other with along the way. It had a lot of the same tenets of his life as a football player, now as the leader of a different community.
I don't think it's surprising that he would share such a thing with you as a member of this tribe as well. How much pride do you take when you see these stories of transformation that seemingly annually come up now with O-linemen who have, found a new version of themselves that they seem really happy about?
Yeah, I think it's pride on a number of levels. It sort of is a sigh of relief because you do worry about what everyone's going to do with that next step of your life. You live so much of your life not as a football player, not as an offensive lineman. So there's that, and then there's obviously the health component of it too. Long-term being that big is not sustainable. It's not good for everything inside you. You can feel that. So knowing that guys are also setting themselves up to be here longer after the fact, because we see far too many guys that you lose early for any number of reasons. For me, very personally, like I look at my dad, who different position, different mindset, a lot of those things, but my dad was a 300-pound defensive lineman in the NFL for 9 years. When he finished, he ballooned up to like 320 pounds and dealt with type 2 diabetes that was exacerbated by that.
Well, Mike, your dad, I grew up watching him.
Yeah.
And his character, his sense of self was a guy who would literally be like stuffing donuts into his mouth, and it was amazing.
Come on, everyone in here. Cheer for old Notre Dame. Wake up the echoes.
Play the song. That's right.
Some music. There we go.
You get a fight song.
He's got 3 left. He's got 2 left after that.
It was one of the best bits Mike and Mike had, was my dad shoving multiple donuts in his mouth, reading a sentence, and then opening up the caller line to see if people could guess what he was saying to win a prize.
Incredible.
And again, very lucrative, like all these things. And it was who he was to an extent, but he had to learn, like everybody else, all right, how much of that me can I take with me? How do I balance that with a me that also wants to make sure that physically I'm around here longer, I'm healthier, and I'm all these things? And so watching my dad go through that and now get down, my dad is probably 230 pounds at this point.
Man.
And knowing what it's done for him health-wise, and just from someone who wants their dad around as long as possible,
Yes.
and who, for the rest of these guys who lose weight, want to know that they're going to be able to give themselves the best chance possible to be there with their families and live the life beyond playing that they want. There is something that you're very proud to see this for everybody.
Yeah, and just the idea of, I thought of myself as something because I was incentivized to do it, because I was pressured, because I was taught, because I wanted it, right? I don't want to take away agency from any of the people in this story, right? But the idea that now I'm going to be something that is trying to be the opposite. And that, how do you reconcile who you really are when you're sort of caught between two extremes in a sense?
Yeah, that was also really interesting talking to Nick and to Joe about was, I always say, like, the Pope speaks so many languages, and I always want to know, for people that are multilingual, what language do you dream in? Because that feels like the one that's most who you are at your core. And so when you're you're an offensive lineman, how do you see yourself? Who is the real you?
This version of me is who I was as a kid. It's who I was until I was 18. And it was really only not me when it was manufactured, right? When I was doing those things, as far as, chugging the milk fat with malted chocolate syrup in it and eating crazy pizzas and ice cream before bed, like that me, that was huge, Fat Joe as my kids call me. I never really fully identified with that guy, because I always just looked in the mirror and I thought of myself, I dreamed as a normal sized 6'6", former professional athlete, I guess, if there is such a thing.
I think it's like anything else. As you grow older, you learn which pieces you can take with you. And you learn how to make sure they best serve the person you want to be going forward. We all want to grow and change. You've just quite literally gotten to do it for so much of your life that now you get to figure that out, both from a physical standpoint. What are the things I like to do workout-wise? When do I feel like my best? Like, I went through a stretch last year where for 6 months I was like, I need to move weight again. And so I went back and started lifting free weights because I wanted to feel a little bit strong again. I needed a taste of that because mentally that put me in a place where I felt like my best self a little bit. So you figure out things like that work for you physically as you go along that also hopefully give you the best mental byproduct possible as you try and grapple with all these other things that are more higher level existential conversations we have about athletes taking that next step.
This is where I also established that part of your bona fides on this topic are that I saw you recently tweet about cookie dip.
Oh, man, let me tell you, dipping cookies into just mashed up version of more cookies was absolutely the fattest. Even people in my life, and I am my father's son. I have also made part of the living. I'm the Duke's Mayo Bowl guy.
Cream-filled cookies here. You first. Take a dip. It's a really interesting blend of flavors. Thumbs up for me.
A pioneer of gluttony on the grandest stages.
The language you dream in when you're asleep is cookies.
100%. With some donuts and heavy whipping cream mixed in there as well.
Well, that's the thing at the end here that I'm laughing about is I'm so glad that you and your dad and all of these guys have found seemingly sustainable personal transformations that I think go well beyond just simply losing the weight, but it's about the discipline and the commitment to change and become a better version of yourself. And now you are stuck with the catch-22 of oh, wow, my dad is going to be around and he's really objectively hotter than me.
The Zaddy phenomenon was not something I was ready for. My colleagues openly thirsting for my 60-year-old father as he has shed weight and gained facial hair.
He looks so good.
And again, it's great, but it also has turned around now, and every day where I feel like, oh, maybe I won't go work out today, I'm like, are you really going to let your dad be hotter than you for this much longer?
There's a photo of him where he was doing a panel discussion. It was with Stugatz in New York.
Yes.
The photo of your dad, it looked like he was working on a vineyard, tanned, a curlicue in his hair, just oily in the best ways.
Oh yeah, he's slightly bronzed. He's looking at the tannins and the glass and the sunlight as they glisten there. Grapes behind him in the distance. Yeah, no, he's transformed into his own sports talk version of the most interesting man in the world now with this wonderful salt and pepper look. So he has got both the hair that is both full, rich, dense, and now packed with grays, and the body that is slim enough to fit in European cut clothing.
Yeah, God. I didn't have the story of the Golic family ending for now with European cut clothing, but you guys are a remarkable species.
It's truly aspirational. I grew up certainly trying to be like my dad in a number of ways as a football player and as a man. I never thought that in my mid-30s I would have to try and emulate his body type in order to become more appealing to potential partners here. That wasn't a card I had on the bingo card.
I am so glad, though, it is the card you've played for me today. Mike Golic Jr., thank you for doing this, man. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Pablo.